All right, welcome everyone. Happy Saturday. Um, gonna get started in just a second. I'm gonna show a little video.
Welcome to today's session, everyone.
We are Pre-Med CC, a student-led organization established in the fall of 2021.
Our goal as an organization was to create an online program for pre-medical students at community colleges and universities, with the hope of guiding the next generation of diverse and inclusive physicians.
And while we advertise our organization as being for community college students, our events are open to anyone.
We realize that finding guidance and mentorship in a pre-med journey can be especially challenging for first-generation pre-med students,
people that lack the financial resources, or just those who do not know people in the medical field.
One of the best parts about our events is that they are virtual, so you can do it from the comfort of your own home.
We typically have events on Fridays from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 12:30 Pacific Standard Time.
If you aren't able to attend the event, all of our sessions are uploaded on our YouTube channel.
Many of our sessions will end up with a Q&A with the speakers.
Any questions that you have, you may put it in the Q&A session on Zoom, and our team members will read them and have them answer.
After you have attended our event, you can log into our website and complete the quiz, which will contain questions pertaining to our session today.
If you score 70% or higher on the quiz, you will be awarded a certificate to show that you attended our session today.
If you want to stay connected with the upcoming events or just want to tell your pre-med friends about the Pre-Med CC, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok as @PreMedCC.
So thank you everyone who's here attending today, and of course to our speakers for today. I'll go ahead and give a brief introduction. We have three panelists. First, Jennifer Aranda, who is an incoming or rising second-year medical student at UCSF School of Medicine, as well as Lourdes Kaufman, who is also attending UCSF School of Medicine, and also Blanca Morales Lugo, who is again another student at UCSF School of Medicine. So I'll let them kind of expand on their own journeys and bios. So I'll hand over the mic to you three.
Okay, I'll go first. Please let me know if I cut out or anything. But my name is Jennifer. Thank you for the introduction. I'm so happy to be here. I presented for this organization last year, and so I'm happy to be coming back and hopefully reaching a greater audience. So I am currently a first year at UCSF, and we're actually all in the same class. These are my classmates here with us today, and we're about to finish our first year next week. So it's really exciting, but it was a really long, incredible journey to get here. I personally am a community college student. I'm also a first generation college student, and I had many barriers to overcome in my undergraduate journey. So I'm not sure if I should maybe start vague and then maybe go into more detail later. I guess I'll start pretty broadly. So I graduated high school in 2016, and then I went to a community college in Los Angeles, which is where I'm from. And I knew that I wanted to go into medicine, but I wasn't entirely sure how I would get there. So I utilized a lot of the resources at my community college, like mentorship available through different programs at the school, as well as talking to like academic advisors. So I was at community college for 3 years, and then I was able to transfer to UCLA with a psychobiology degree, with a psychobiology major. And the reason why I chose that was because I thought it was like the perfect way to combine my interest in psychology and biology, just as the major states. And so then I graduated UCLA in 2021. I got my bachelor's degree in psych from UCLA. And then I immediately applied to medical school that summer. The application's 1 year. So during that year, while I was waiting to hear back from interviews and acceptances and whatnot, I worked as a medical scribe in an orthopedics office for a whole year. And that was also something really incredible that I was able to fit into my application as well, because I had started it right before submitting my application. So there's some like little tips and nuances about that. And then I received my acceptance to UCSF in December. I was still holding out for some other programs, made my final decision in April to attend UCSF, and also made the final decision to be a part of the UCSF Prime underserved program. So that's also something else that is just like a little cherry on the top. And yeah, so we're about to finish our first year, and we'll be happy to expand on any questions after. So maybe I'll pass it on to Lourdes. She wants to go next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Lourdes. Thank you, Jen, for such a great introduction. Yeah, so I'm also a first-year medical student at UCSF. A little bit about me. I am from the East Coast, so I grew up in like the greater New York City metropolitan area. I graduated high school, my local public school in 2016, then went to Harvard for my undergrad, where I studied human evolutionary biology with a minor in chemistry. So I got my Bachelor of Arts from there in 2020, so the year of the pandemic. I decided to take 2 gap years because I really wanted to spend some time working in a corporate job before I started medical school. So I worked as a consultant for a life science and healthcare firm in Boston, where I like helped pharmaceutical companies, like med tech companies, diagnostics companies, sort of do research on the markets they were interested in and their products. So then during my first gap year is when I started to apply to medical school. And so that summer, I did all the applications, and then my second gap year was all the interviews. I received my acceptance from UCSF and the UCSF UC Berkeley joint medical program in February, and made my final decision in May to attend. And excited to talk to you all for the first time. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Blanca.
Thank you, Lou. Hi, everyone. My name is Blanca. I use pronouns she and her. A little bit about me is that I graduated high school 2015, and I went to I'm from Southern California, Orange County. If any of you are from over there, yay. And then I went to UC Davis, which is up north in California, and I majored in biochem and molecular bio, and also minored in ecology, evolution, and biodiversity. I took around 3 gap years before I finally applied to medical school. I also, like Jen, I got my UCSF acceptance in December. And I was also waiting for more offers. And then I don't know when I said yes to UCSF, to be honest. Probably when they like sent out the, like, you need to decide now. But yeah, we are so happy to be here, and please ask any questions. But yeah, thank you so much. Oops, so sorry.
Okay, so please put your questions in the Q&A. If you have any general questions or specific for a specific panelist, we can also ask those. We do have one question that I think is for Jennifer, since it's about being a community college student, and if that came up in your medical school interviews.
Yes. So the answer is I did get questions about it, but I think the reason why is because I decided to kind of set the tone of the conversation, like regarding me being a community college student as being a positive thing. I always wanted to kind of let them know that I was proud of like where I started, and I never wanted to hide that I was a community college student. I always think it is such a positive when you're able to like transfer from somewhere that is surrounded with so much negative stigma, and you're able to like succeed and progress to university, and that is overcoming like an adversity. So to me, I always wrote about it and spoke about it in a positive way, and used it to kind of show that like I was able to overcome this adversity, and it gave me like the tools and the knowledge that I needed to continue to succeed. So I would usually bring it up in my interviews because I also took advantage of the time that I was there by doing a lot of different things in my community college. So I think it was a really good way to make your application stronger and made me a better applicant to medical school. I did some like summer research at community college. I participated in many pre-medical programs that are actually only tailored to community college students and that are not even available to students at a university. So those are out there and they're plentiful, and they're actually also like pretty accessible. One of them that I participated in was called SHPEP, or the Summer Health Professions Education Program, and that's like a nationwide program. They have positions at different universities, and that's only for community college students and students at universities who are from underrepresented and medicine backgrounds. So that was like another advantage to my application. And yeah, community college gave me the flexibility to do things outside of school, like volunteer at hospitals. I was able to create my own schedule, so I even held a part-time job. I did some community service and volunteering there. So I just overall used it to my advantage, and also presented it to the admissions committees as being an advantage for me personally. And I'm sure that all community college students can also present it in a really positive light, and you don't want to hide it. That's my biggest advice, is don't hide it. Like, be very positive about it if you can.
Thank you. And then kind of going off of that note on what kind of experiences and programs you all had, someone asked, what were some programs and experiences you each had to develop your application outside of work, such as scribing or consulting, as some of you mentioned? And we can go around to each person.
I can go first. I would say like the vast majority of the things that I had on my primary application were like activities that I participated in undergrad. So one of my like main extracurricular activities was doing research. So I wrote like an honors thesis, which is like around like a 70-page manuscript, which like kind of was the worst thing ever for my senior year. Took a lot of time, but I think doing scholarly work, and it doesn't have to be like basic science research either. I think medical schools are generally like, they really like to hear that and they like to see that. I think some other things that I participated in, I'm pulling up my primary application now, but one thing that I really loved doing in college was I was a drug and alcohol peer advisor. So basically I worked with other undergrads in our office for, I think, what was it called? Alcohol and other drug services. And we like developed a curriculum on like safety around the use of alcohol and drugs. And we used to run workshops for like freshmen who just came to college, and basically like what to look out for if like you or a friend like are having like alcohol poisoning, or like how to pour like the proper serving of alcohol so you know how much you're consuming, like safe drinking habits. And I really enjoyed that. And I think like it showed that I was like really interested and cared about people's well-beings and health. I think also like showing, like demonstrating that you like sort of understand what medicine is by actually taking time to shadow physicians and what it's like to be a doctor is important. And I think that's one thing. I think they say you should have a minimum of like 40 hours of shadowing, or maybe a little bit less, 20. Is it? What did you guys hear? I don't know. I think it probably depends on what like your pre-med like advisors say, but I think like I've heard anywhere from like you should have like 20 to 40 hours of shadowing. And that's something you can always like talk about in your primary application, the things you liked when you did shadow physicians. And if you have a particular interest in a specialty, which I certainly did not, I came in like not knowing what I wanted to do. So that's definitely not necessary, but I think those are some ideas for activities you could do.
I can go next. I did not do research. I think that's something I always put out there. I know a lot of people, a lot of our classmates are really amazing and they've all done research. I am one of the few that has not done research. But I did a lot of community service aside from like the hospital. I did a lot of community service and a lot of different things. I know I was a teaching assistant for like, I don't know if any of you know, like the religious, like it was a Catholic school where you go like on Sundays while like your parents are at church or something. So I did that for like my 4 years of at UC Davis. And then I was also an elementary teaching assistant as well. I did that also for like 3 years. And then my hospital volunteer was just like working at or volunteering at like hospitals in Sacramento. I was also a chemistry tutor during my time at Davis. They like offered me a job and I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. And then I was also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. So I was a lot with the elderly populations there, and that was really fun. Eventually, when I came, that was most of that was like during UC Davis. And then during my gap years, I still tried to volunteer over here with the communities in Orange County. So I was like a mobile mammogram volunteer where we served low income and uninsured female identifying patients. And I also continued tutoring science. So that was like a little bit on my own. I did a program called Big Brothers, Big Sisters. So I was I was a big sister to a younger girl, and that was, I think that extends until now. I don't know like how you put, I think on my application I put like currently still doing that. And then what else did I do? I know something online. I don't know if a few of you have like heard about it, but it's called like crisis. Let me look at it. Crisis text line. So I did that. And I think that's something that you all can do since it's like online. But yes, I did a few like community things, but if you have any questions, like please ask me more. I'm super happy to answer anything.
I'm also answering some of the questions, like writing some answers. So. Okay, so.
Ooh, can I add something real quick? I think when you find your community experiences or whatever you want to volunteer or work at. I think the main thing is showing that you actually enjoyed it and seeing that it was like a difference to you and what difference you made within that organization, whether it's something small or something huge. But I know a lot of people are like, oh, should I do this? Because I feel it's just like another checkbox on the application. But I think if it's important to you and if you're able to speak about it, because during your interviews, I feel everything on your application is free game where they can ask you about it. So as long as it seems like you're passionate about whatever activity you did, I think you would be completely fine.
Did any of you want to add anything to that question before we move on? Oh, okay, cool. So another question that we have is, how did COVID-19 affect your pre-med journey? Yeah, or currently still affecting?
I can go first. So for me, COVID-19, I guess it began around like March 2020, I believe. And during that time, I was a junior at UCLA, so I had just started UCLA maybe a few months prior. I started in September, so I was only at UCLA for maybe about 6 months. And then they were like, okay, everything's online now. So that actually saved me a commute. I lived in Los Angeles, but pretty far away. So I was still living in my family home. And so it was actually nice to like not have to commute that like hour every day. In terms of like school and online classes, I would say that that first quarter where we went online, a lot of teachers panicked. I mean, a lot of professors panicked and didn't really know what to do. And so I actually think that I got pretty good grades out of that quarter without really doing much. But that was just like kind of a one-off lucky thing. Other than that, though, a lot of my things had to transition to being remote. I was able to successfully transition my research job remotely. I was able to transition my part-time mentorship job remotely. And we actually had to pause part of our hospital volunteering, but they let us come back at the end of 2020 to be part of COVID screening. So I was still able to keep that experience as one of my most meaningful experiences in my medical school application. I would say those were the biggest factors, and I'm so thankful that I wasn't impacted health-wise, and my family wasn't either. And I understand that that could be such a big thing for so many people. So yeah, that was my experience.
I would say like so I graduated in 2020, so my the first quarter of COVID was my senior spring. So my undergrad actually made everything like mandatorily pass fail that semester. So like even my pre-med classes had to be, which you weren't allowed to take. Like I was taking my last pre-med requirement, which was like the second half of the year of physics. And like medical schools all accepted that because it was an emergency pass fail. Like I didn't even have a choice whether or not to do that. So I'll say like in terms of my med school application, one thing I was a little nervous about was like my shadowing hours. I think I had like 30 or so. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I should have more. And there was like no way in the world I was going to shadow during COVID. But I think that they like medical schools were understanding of that. And in general, now I believe things are opening up a lot more. And I'm pretty sure like people can shadow. I don't know, it must depend on the hospital, but I think there's definitely you have more opportunity now that COVID's kind of calmed down to keep shadowing. In terms of my job, I was supposed to be working in an office in Boston, and my job was remote for the entire 2 years, which was like both a positive and a negative, but mostly a positive, I would say. And yeah, so I wasn't like gravely affected by COVID, and I felt like, but I think a lot of it was because most of my undergrad was during like pre-COVID time. So I was able to get those experiences before, but I think for you all who are like pre-meds now, I think that things are getting back to normal. So you won't lose out on some of those experiences.
For me, I graduated right before COVID. So when it was time to find a job, it was a little hard. So I did do like a lot of job balancing because I think I started teaching and then schools closed. So I had to find a new job. And then I think I went to like a lab, but then one of our like main investors was China, and then they like stepped back. So then I needed to find another job. And I just kept bouncing for a while, to be honest. But it's really interesting. I feel during my applications, I think we discussed about like what I've done in my gap years, and that was something. I have a very like bubbly personality and I laugh a lot. So during my interviews, I feel it was more like not a joke per se, but it was something that we can just kind of be like, oh yeah, like it was something that happened. And I think my attitude about it was really, I don't know, nice, empowering in a way that I didn't like kind of let it be something that negatively affected me. Also, I think volunteering, especially once you're out of like, or for me, like once I was out of UC Davis, it was a little bit harder coming back to Orange County and being like, oh, hey, I am like, you're not affiliated with that campus anymore. So it's a little bit harder to get like volunteering jobs, since at UC Davis, you're basically connected to the hospitals and you're kind of guaranteed a volunteer position. And over here, a lot of the hospitals were like, oh, sorry, like we're not accepting volunteers anymore. But I completely agree with what Lou said about how now everything's opening up. I think very close to like last year, I was still able to volunteer at like Chalk, which is a really huge children's hospital in Orange County. So the regulations are opening up. And especially, and even now, I think during winter break, I went back to Orange County and I was shadowing some physicians, and none of them ever said like, oh no, like we can't accept you due to like COVID. It was more about like, oh, hospital regulations that we can't just have anyone in here, versus back then it was like, oh no, because of COVID. So I think a lot of doors are open for you all now.
Thank you. And we have another question that says, what do you think is the thing that helped you craft the best primary application? And we'll start with that one. There's like an additional question about the interview and the secondary apps, but maybe you can start with the primary application.
I can start the primary. I mean, the whole medical application is like very daunting. So I think like the number one thing is like giving yourself ample time. So I would literally start thinking about these things like now, as soon as possible. And spreading it out will also make the experience a lot better for you. For me, I would say I started writing my personal statement in like January, and I applied in May. And I went through like dozens and dozens of versions and edits, and it took a long time. And because my like vision for like, or like my, path to medicine wasn't like, there wasn't a very clear story. So it took me a lot of time to like actually like to pick out some of the experiences that I've had and like curate them and then decide how I wanted to present them in a way that showed like why I would be a good fit for medical school. So I think taking time to do that and to like, version up your essay over and over and over again. In terms of the other sections, so besides the personal statement, the other part of the primary that's going to take a lot of brain power is your activities. And I think that section is something that people don't necessarily take as seriously as they should. And I think there's a lot of room to present yourself as a great medical school applicant in those sections. And so there are not that many words. So you have to be very careful with, not wasting any words on something that's not important. But I think going through each of your activities and maybe thinking of an anecdote that describes like how you fit into that activity or what that activity meant to you or how that activity contributed to your like path to medicine, that takes a lot of time. So and I think I think you can have a maximum of 15. So you can't just like keep writing them. So you have to like pick which activities, are most important to you and then develop those paragraphs. And I think there's also, Blanca and Jen, tell me if you remember more about this, but there are like 2 or 3 activities where they're like, you can, what are they called again? They're like your special activities. I don't remember what they're called, but you can like write more about them. So like deciding which one of those activities were like most important for you and like developing that like paragraph or so about it, I think that takes a lot of time. So yeah, my number one thing would be like time.
I completely agree with Blue. It takes a lot of time just because there's many parts. And if I remember correctly, you had to also get like contact information, like phone numbers and maybe addresses. I'm not sure. So that took some time. And for me, I know I had like 3 gap years. So I was like, oh my God, where do I go? I was like, who is it again? Like, I don't remember. But I think even now, since a few of you are in college, or most of you are in college, I don't know. I think it would be nice to kind of have like a spreadsheet or like a Google Docs or like Google Sheets type of thing where you can start writing like those experiences and maybe like just your reflections. So then when it's time to do the actual application, you can remember like how you felt or like what impact you did with that activity. When it comes to like personal statements and what's the other one? Disadvantage statement. You'll get many opinions on like how to write your personal statement, and who should edit it and who should, like, you'll get so many different answers to like those questions about personal statements. For me, I think only 2 people I lied, 3 people have read my personal statement. One of them is my best friend who is also a medical student. And then the other one is who have helped me, because also all my letters of rec people have read my personal statement. But one of them was my best friend. She helped me write a little bit. And then the other one was one of the physicians I shadowed. So I reached out if they can write me a letter of recommendation, and then they replied back to me asking me if I would be okay with their like help on like writing and editing my personal statement. So I took advantage of that. And then the other one, UC Davis has like a health professions advising. And so I took advantage of that once, but I didn't really feel like there was like they were looking at what I wanted to write. I think similar to Lou, I think at the end your personal statement is yours and whatever you think is important and whatever like everyone has a different path to medicine. So whatever you think is important to that path and what you want to share with admissions, I think like you ultimately decide what's going to be on your personal statement. And it's very time consuming.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Just that you need to familiarize yourself with the timeline for applying to medical school. In the beginning, I had no idea that it was even a year-long process. So think about how applications are submitted in the summer. That means that you have to prepare everything before summer. And then afterwards, your application takes a few weeks to be processed, and then it gets sent to medical schools, and then you're waiting for interviews. And most schools have rolling admissions, so it is to your advantage to apply early. And so you just familiarize yourself with the timeline. I'm not sure if it's the same as when we applied, so I don't want to say dates, but you could look at the AMCAS website, or I think Jubin posted something on the chat. And then applying early is a really big thing, especially for schools with rolling admissions. It's just to your advantage.
Yeah, I just posted that because we had 3 deans of admission that walked through the AMCAS, and actually coming this year, they've changed the disadvantage statement to another thing, and so they go through that, and then they also added a social justice component for this year's AMCAS. So watch that presentation because these people each read about 6 to 7,000 applications a year, so they read a lot more AMCAS applications than the average Joe.
Okay, thank you. Maybe now you can each speak in regards to the interviews and the secondary app process.
I can start with the secondary app process. So I will say I applied to a lot of medical schools, like 30, and secondaries. Like Jen just mentioned, since a lot of medical schools are rolling admissions, like it is in your benefit to apply as soon as possible so that you're one of the first people considered for each school, so they have enough spots. And if you apply early, I think all of your, for me at least, all of my secondaries hit within a month. So I received an email that said, okay, this school is like requesting a secondary application. And so the general rule of thumb, yes, exactly. The general rule of thumb is that you should send your completed secondary in within 2 weeks of receiving it. And I think it's not like the worst thing ever if you take longer, but I'll say that like in general, medical schools look more favorably upon you if you submit it in a timely fashion within 2 weeks, because it shows you're interested and you're on top of it. And so in order to succeed in like getting all that done and having high quality essays is to pre-write them. And so most years medical schools have the same exact prompts. And so you can look online and see what the prompt is very far in advance. And occasionally they'll change them, but it's very uncommon. And so you can pre-write them as much as you can. For me, I should have done more pre-writing than I did, and it ended up being more stressful than it probably should have been. But I think a good idea is to write out like general, like there are a lot of questions that will come up over and over and over again. Like just like, I don't know, like talk about your background or write a diversity statement about yourself that you'll be able to craft beforehand, and then you can like tweak it to the school. But I'd say like having like knowing like maybe like creating a document with all of the secondary applications you anticipate seeing, and then at least start thinking about what you're going to write, if not like jotting down some ideas or even fully writing them. I think that's a really good idea and will help you succeed during that month of usually July or August, where you're like kind of going crazy writing all these essays. I think at the end I had written like 150 essays or something in that month, and they're not like full essays. They're like, some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, but it's a lot of writing. And if you're going to apply to a lot of schools, then I think it really behooves you to think in advance.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about my interviews. I had a really positive experience interviewing. I think all of my interviewers were really kind and really supportive. I think our UCSF interviewers are the best. A little biased too, but there's different types of interviews that you'll be placed on. So I know some schools do like open file interviews where they've seen your entire application. There's some who do closed interviews where they kind of only know your name, and I believe that's what UCSF does. And And those, I think it's really nice to take advantage where you can kind of guide what topics you want to talk about and what topics you may not want to talk about. For closed interview or open interviews where they see your entire packet, I think it's good to, for example, if you have like a low MCAT or low GPA or some other kind of like red flags that you might see as red flags, I think it's always nice to have like a well thought answer to those, of how you can kind of show that you overcame that, or how you did like better throughout the years, or whatever you learned from having like a low MCAT, low GPA, or any other red flag. You have your your closed file interviews. I think those are the best. And I think you could just connect more with the interviewer. I think you also have like the, what is it called? Where you have like multiple interviews in one.
MMI.
There you go, your MMIs, which are really nice too. But those, I think they're a little bit harder just because you don't get to form that bond with like an interviewer. And it's just like you got like 12 people. And I think UC Davis does that one. But I think it's really nice. I think for interview prep, I think it's good for you to go through, I think there's like 5 common like interview questions that you should kind of know the answer to, of like, tell me about yourself, like why medicine, like what have you done, maybe like one experience, and like how you like just elaborate really well on that experience and why it's super important to you. But overall, I think interviews are very scary. They're very stressful, but I think reminding yourself that you're talking to another like human being, and just like know why you want to go into medicine. And I think after going through like your entire application, like you'll kind of know, like by this point, I feel you should know yourself and know why you're going into medicine, and just be honest with yourself and with the interviewer. I think it would go great. And I loved mine. I don't know if maybe Jen and Lou had positive experiences, but I know I did.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think they covered everything really well. In terms of interviews, I'm pretty sure just familiarizing yourself with the school and like what type of interview they like to do. And if it's MMI, practice a lot of MMI style questions online, on YouTube. There's a lot of free resources. You can just Google MMI interview questions and practice. Additionally, I remember that Student Doctor Network had an interview question database for every school, where pretty much people put in some common interview questions that maybe that school has asked in prior years. And so you can get a sense of like kind of what the school might be looking for in terms of the types of questions they want to ask. But I think preparation is key, being confident. If it's virtual, it's quite nice because you don't have to worry about commuting costs with that, etc. But I think just preparation and confidence is a really big key.
Thank you. And we had a question of overall, how many hours, I don't know if you can quantify this, do you think you spent on your applications for med school? Kind of a hard question.
A lot.
All I could say
Yeah.
is that they didn't wake up on April 29th or May 29th and submitted their application June 1st. Just a hunch.
Okay, well then let me move on to our next question. Let's see. There's so many, and I know you're answering some of them, but someone asked if you use the maximum activities on the application and if it would look bad if you did not include 15, or if it's okay as long as you invested a lot of time in those fewer activities.
I can go. I did use all 15, but just because I did have like a lot of community service, a lot of volunteering. So I did a lot. And I think many people, and I also did 3 gap years too. Um, but something that I do hear people say is that they kind of like, so they're like very similar things. I think you could kind of put it into one. And like, let's say you have like 18, you could combine all your like shadowing experiences into like one bucket, and now you have like one extra. But also I don't like, if you don't have 15, then you can't really make 15. And I think just write it, because you also get like a little portion of like activity description. So I think like if you have something to say about it, and if you did something memorable with that activity, something that you liked about that activity, I think it's fine to put it on there. But I think if it's just to complete the boxes, I think, I'm not an admissions person, but I feel they could probably see through it if you're just like, oh yeah, I did this for like a month before the application. So that's my take on it. I am not part of admissions, so I don't want to say too much either.
Block, I agree with you. I think it's quality over quantity, and somebody who fills up an application with like lower quality activities that they're clearly not that like passionate about, I think that shows through. I think a lot of like, so I've heard that like admissions committees like to see when people are like very committed to certain activities. So if you show like a deep commitment to a smaller number of activities, I think that's actually a really good thing. But I also did fill up all of mine. And I think there's some like, I think some of my activities were even more like not formal. I think they were like I really like painting. So I like talked about like, I did like a study abroad program during college where I studied art history. And like, I talked a little bit about like how I like to paint as one of my like, pastime activities. So they don't have to be all super formal either. And I think like showing that you're passionate about things and they want to curate like an interesting class with diversity of like interests. So
Yeah, I know when the deans did the walk through the AMCAS presentation, they said that if you like someone who's worked full time, like mention that and talk about that, don't leave anything up to the imagination. So if you can't fill up 15, like you should probably have a good explanation why. And so if you like worked full time, if you're a parent, but if you're just, a traditional student that just like graduated high school, went to college, um, didn't have like any responsibilities, but if you're like a parent, work, have other responsibilities, then yeah, and what Lord Miss Kaufman said that like painting, painting is a very creative thing, and I know most people that paint, don't do it in like 4 minutes. It's usually a process, and if you're using watercolors, and those take a lot more time. So it's not just like those 15 are not just for like, oh, I want to get into medical school, but like things that you do as a human being, like um, if you do underwater basket weaving, talk about that.
Did anyone want to add anything else?
Sure, I can add something. I believe I used 12 activities and one was for like all of my hobbies. So I would say maybe 11 activities I ended up using, filled with like community service, jobs, research, like poster presentations, work, like anything. And um, I don't think it really matters whether you use like 15 or 10. But I do think like a lower number would be like 5 or something. Although I'm not an admissions committee member, it's just compared to like the other students. In my application cycle, it did feel like a lot of us were using up most of the space that we could. So.
Thank you. And Someone asked, this is also maybe a hard question, but what did you do to make sure you were unique as a med student applicant? Or what advice would you give to students who are trying to create a unique application?
This is a hard question, but I think like something that could be useful is sort of like crafting a very cohesive story about yourself and having all of your activities sort of align with that story. I think like admissions being able to like think about you in a like, okay, so if like you're like your standard pre-med and like you have a bunch of different activities and they're not super cohesive, I think you'll like blend into a crowd. But if you can really like craft a story about like why medicine and then all of the activities that you've curated to like foster your your the things that you love to do and why medicine, then I think that's more memorable. In terms of being like unique, I mean, a lot of pre-meds do a lot of the same things. So I think just being true to yourself and not doing things for your application, but doing them out of your own like interest and passion will help you stand out, because I think it really shows when you're doing things that you're not passionate about. And I think being able to talk about something genuinely and candidly and showing like how much, you know, of an impact it's had on you, I think that's one way to stand out.
Yes, I loved Lou's answer. I think 100% the same. I think something that you can do as well, since how Lou mentioned, most of us have very similar experiences. We all volunteered at a hospital. We all did some community service. We all did like shadowing. So we all basically have been doing the same thing through our pre-med career. I think it'd be really interesting. This is what I did, but also it was kind of part of who I am, and I really like doing it. I know I did like a few projects like on my own. So I guess that was more like, oh, I created this. So we talked about it during like interviews, and it was a little bit different than like, oh, I worked for this company or something like that. But something I did was during like the pandemic, I know I created like an Instagram that translated like infograph or science or health infographics from like English to Spanish. But there was like a story behind it too that kind of like was part of like my why medicine. And so a lot of the interviews we talked about that, because every time they're like, oh, that's very unique. So even doing like a unique hobby or something unique about yourself in that application, I think that's something that they would bring up in the interviews and would like make you stand out a little bit more than the other applicants. But yeah, I loved Lou's answer, and I think 100% and echoing everything she said.
Okay, thank you. And maybe you could each speak about what your first year experience has been like at UCSF, and what the transition was like from being, you know, pre-med to in med school.
Okay, I'll start. So it was like a very rough transition for me because it was like my first time moving away from home. But I was able to get through it. It's really important to go to a school that you feel like has a lot of support for you. So I truly felt like I had resources at the school that could help me, and also finding like a really strong friendship group is a really important thing. I would recommend even going to classes like the first few weeks of school at least, so you can meet people. I think it's so important to have like friends in medical school, and a school like UCSF is incredible because our classmates were not competing against each other, because we don't have like a grading system where we're ranked or anything. So I think that's also something to consider when you're looking into medical schools, like ensuring that the preclinical years are pass fail, so you don't feel like you're in competition with anyone else. And also, so the friend group is so important, and also you can like join clubs and stuff. Like me, Blanca, and Lourdes were all part of the Latino Medical Student Association, and at our school it's like pretty big. There's about like 30 students in that, which is incredible. So I think that was also a really good place to find friends. And now like we're at the end of our first year, we're kind of getting used to things. It's still hard, it's still a daily battle, but like you grow strength in yourself after all the things that you go through as well. And also I did also want to talk about you applying as a disadvantaged student. I'm very open with sharing my story about like I let me just start over. My story is that like I grew up as a disadvantaged student, and I put that in my application and as part of my story, and I was able to like openly talk about it and how like I overcame adversity, and I think that was like a really positive like a positive part of my application. However, there are going to be people that maybe don't believe in you, or that have negative things to say about you, or who question you or belittle you, especially if you look a certain way or act a certain way. And I would just want to let everyone know that like these things happen, and it doesn't say anything about you. It says more about the other person. People may like portray their insecurities on you, but like if I can do it, like you can do it as well. I think that's my main message. Like we're all so capable of more than we think we are. And until we're actually like put in a situation and we're able to overcome it, I think that's what really helps grow your like internal strength and confidence. And so just be aware that there are going to be people like that. And you know what, you may encounter them in medical school as well. But just try to lean on your internal strength and the support and the capability that you know you have. And that's all for me.
I can go next. I have absolutely loved my first year. I agree with Jen. I think having a really great support system is amazing. Jen, Lou, they're two of my closest friends here. So I think gathering your support system, and it's super, super easy at the beginning of the year. Everyone is hungry for friends because we're all just coming here. It's almost like at the beginning of undergrad where everyone's like, oh my God, what's your name? What's your number? What's your da da da? But this is a little bit easier just because, or in our class, there's like 160 of us. And at least for like the first week or so, you kept seeing them. So you just made friends really fast. And the way that UCSF works is that we have like a lot of small groups. So you're kind of, you have some small groups where you're paired with like 12 other classmates. And so you see them often. So if you don't find friends at the very beginning, you'll find friends there. Like ultimately you'll find friends. And I think just having a really strong support system is really important, especially if I think Jen and we both moved from Southern California up here, and I am a very like family person. So at the very beginning, I missed my family a lot. But just being with like friends was very helpful. My story compared to undergrad is a little bit different because during undergrad, I went to UC Davis, but I went to Davis with my best friend. So I didn't really feel like I missed too much just because like we were both there and we were together from freshman year to senior year. So it was a lot different than here where I moved alone and I didn't have my support buddy, my best friend like with me. So that was a little bit different, but so I kind of felt that coming here to UCSF was like my undergrad experience of being like alone in this world. But having a support system is really great. Thankfully, I met our close friends like very early on the year. So we go out, we do a lot of like activities together. And so like now that it's like June, we're super close, and I don't think I would have done it any differently. And I absolutely love them.
I'll say mine really quick because I know it's 12, but completely echo what Jen and Blanca said about having a support system. And like my friends have been an integral part of like my first year here and have really supported me moving like across the country from home. One thing I'll add, like in terms of being like transitioning from pre-med to med, is like it is the most refreshing thing ever to actually start learning like clinical science, going from like learning organic chemistry and physics and stuff that feels so unrelated to your future career to actually learning about like how to be a doctor is like one of the most satisfying and exciting things. And I think really makes me feel that I've chosen the right path. And so, yeah, it's really hard. We have an exam on Friday that's coming up. And sometimes I'm like get sad about, oh, I have to study so much. I don't have a lot of time to do things I love. But then I like take a step back and realize that like this is something that I've dreamed of for my entire life, and I'm able to study it. And like it is, you know, pushing me further into my career as a physician, and learning how to take care of people is extremely rewarding. And so I think while it can be hard to study all the time, it's so awesome, and you're going to love medical school.
So I know you all have busy schedules, but if there are any last questions, put them in now. But also, I'm sure everyone is very thankful for your time and for answering all their questions. Let's see. Okay.
I think following up on what Jennifer talked about, maybe Blanca and Lourdes, can you guys talk about how you all dealt with naysayers and people that were discouraging and people that you know, because we've all had those people along the way, from advisors to neighbors to just even classmates, and how did you both address and dealt with those?
So we're gonna head out soon. I'm gonna say bye really quickly. And thank you everyone for coming in. Please follow my Instagram, Med with Jen, if you want to see what medical school is like. But I'm so happy to answer any questions offline on Instagram. So thanks, y'all.
I can answer that question real quickly. I think thankfully I have had like a really strong support system. And maybe this is more me as a person, but I think growing up there was a lot of not hate, but I think more of oh, like why are you thinking of med school? Like you won't ever be there kind of thing. So I think ultimately, like eventually, like down the line, I would kind of just keep stuff to myself. But once I like got into med school and I shared, everyone is super proud, super excited, super happy for me. But I think the way that you can deal with I don't know what the word was, but people who don't believe in you, I think it's more of like, if you believe in yourself, that's like the strongest thing that you can kind of go with. So I think just you knowing that you'll get into medical school, that you'll become a doctor, I think that's like the most important thing here. So having like just knowing that you'll get there, whatever time, however long it takes you, like you will get there and you have all the support you need. I'm 100% sure if you reach out to at like any of us, for example, like we will help you. You have like great advisors too. There's going to be someone like in your corner rooting for you. And I think just having the support system and surrounding yourself with a really great support system, that's probably like the best way to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, completely agree. Surround yourself with those who bring you up, and for the naysayers, like use what they have to say as fuel to prove them wrong. That's what I'll say. I think there are, especially like as like an underrepresented woman in medicine, a lot of people doubt you. People don't believe I'm like in school to be an MD. Sometimes they'll ask me like, oh, like nursing, like, is that what you're doing? Or like people have seen me in scrubs and called me nurse on the street, and nobody assumes that you're going to be like an MD just because of what you look like or what you identify as. And so I think also finding mentors. At UCSF, we have a lot of programs for underrepresented in medicine, like students who are underrepresented in medicine, to find mentors. And so I have one mentor who's a physician and then also a Latina woman. And having like fostering that relationship with her has been awesome. And seeing like what somebody who looks like you and comes from a similar background to you, like what they've accomplished. So forming those mentorship relationships are also really important.
Thank you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say one last thank you and good luck with your exam and everything. And yeah, thank you to everyone for attending as well.